Hey guys, Bernadette here with A Purpose in a Stitch, and today I'm going to walk you through how to make the Sequoia Slouch. To get things started, I'm going to be working with a 10mm crochet hook as well as Woolly's Thick and Quick yarn by Lion Brand in their succulent colorway. If you are going to be making this in a worsted weight yarn, you'll need a different hook, so please reference the pattern. To get things started, we're going to make a slip knot, and then we're going to start our foundation row of working several chains. For this video tutorial, I am just working a small sample size, so please reference the pattern for the exact amount of chains that you'll need depending on which size and which yarn you're working in. In this first row, we're going to just be working double crochets all the way across. I am going to be working in the 4th chain from my hook, but in the pattern you'll see notes that you can start off in the 3rd chain from your hook if you want less gapping on the bottom side of your completed beanie. This beanie is going to be worked flat to make a long rectangle, which we will seam up to form a cylinder and then close up at the top. So the construction is a little different than some other beanie patterns out there, but just follow along and you'll get the hang of it in no time. So once our first row of double crochets is complete, we're going to turn our work and we're going to start working those half double crochet slip stitches. To work this stitch, we're going to start by yarning over and inserting our hook into the first stitch. We're going to pull up a loop and pull that loop through both of the loops that are on our hook. Again, we're yarning over, inserting our hook into the stitch, and then pulling up a loop and pulling that loop through both of the loops that are on our hook. So this stitch starts off just like a half double crochet and finishes like a slip stitch. For this pattern, we're going to be working 3 rows of these half double crochet slip stitches, and in each row the placement of where we're putting the stitch is going to change. This first row is worked just like a normal stitch into the V of the stitch, but we're going to be working the next row a little differently. So you can see here that we have 3 loops. We've got this 3rd loop, and then we've got our front loop and our back loop. For this next row, we're going to be working the half double crochet slip stitches into the back loop only. So we're going to insert our hook into that one loop only, and we're going to continue working those half double crochet slip stitches all the way across. By changing the placement of where we're working these stitches, we're going to be creating a knit look that runs across the front. So we're going to work those half double crochet slip stitches in the back loop only all the way across this row, and then we're going to turn our work. You can see that nice knit look that we're starting to get with the V's running across the front of our work. So again, we're going to turn our work, and this time we're going to be working into the 3rd loop only. So we've got our back loop here, we've got our front loop, and then this 3rd loop right here. So when we work a half double crochet, we get a 3rd loop, and that's where this stitch is going to be worked for this row. So again, we're inserting our hook just into that very first loop that's closest to you, and we're going to continue working that pattern all the way across for this row. If you're familiar with working the camel stitch, this will seem a little familiar to you. However, the camel stitch is typically worked in the round, and since we're going to be working this pattern flat, the placement of where the 3rd loop is a little different than where we would normally find it while we're working round. So now that we have our 3rd row of our half double crochet slip stitches, we're going to go back and work a row of double crochets into the back loop only of that very last row. So again, we're just working into the back loop, and we're going to work double crochets all the way across. If you're going to be following the pattern for the worsted weight yarn, this row will be a little different for you as you'll work the double crochets all the way across. However, with extra bulky weight yarn, working the full row of double crochets does create an extra bulky top, which was a little difficult to close up. So my solution was to only work double crochets up until the very last 2 to 3 stitches, depending on which size that you're working. So we're actually going to stop 2 stitches away from the end of this row, and we're going to turn our work. So we're just skipping those last 2 stitches for now, and we'll go back and work into them later. And then this very next row is going to be another row of half double crochet slip stitches worked under the V of the stitch all the way across. Once we finish this row, we're going to turn our work, and we're going to start by working another row of half double crochets into the back loop only. So again, this is another row of half double crochet slip stitches into the back loop only, and we're going to continue working these stitches in each stitch all the way across until we get to those last 2 stitches that we had skipped on the double crochet row. And we're going to continue working 2 or 3 more half double crochet slip stitches into the back loop only to finish this row. So once we get those last 2 or 3 stitches worked, we're going to turn our work, and we're going to continue on with the repeat of this pattern by working our half double crochet slip stitches into the 3rd loop only again. And we're just going to want to continue to work those half double crochet slip stitches into the 3rd loop only all the way across this next row. So we're going to just finish this row. We're going to turn our work, and you'll be able to see now pretty clearly where the top of our beanie pattern is going to be a little bit shorter on the one side than on the other side, and that's because of the double crochet row that we did not work all the way across. And we're going to just continue on by repeating these 4 rows to achieve the length that we need for our beanie. So again, it's going to be 1 row of double crochet stitches followed by the 3 rows of our half double crochet slip stitches. And this pattern will be the same regardless of if you're working the extra bulky weight pattern or the worsted weight pattern. So now that we have the achieved length that we need for our beanie to fit around the circumference of our head, we're going to take the last row that we worked and the foundation row, and we're going to work another row of half double crochet slip stitches. Only this row will be worked into our foundation row as well as the 3rd loop and the back loop of our ending row only. So we're going to leave that very front loop, or the loop that's furthest away from you, we're going to leave that one alone, and that will help create a more seamless look for our closure. We're going to work that process all the way down the side of our beanie, and that's going to end us with a cylinder with the top and bottoms being opened. While working the extra bulky weight pattern, I went through and I worked a row of slip stitches all the way around the bottom. Because of the nature of these stitches, it does create a little bit of a curl in our beanie. So to combat that, I worked this row of slip stitches all the way around the bottom. You could also go through, and before you close up your beanie, you could wet block the pattern for a more seamless bottom, or you could also work a second row of slip stitches into this first row of slip stitches all the way around the bottom. Whatever works for you. The main goal is just to get a cleaner look running across the bottom of our beanie with those slip stitches. So once we have that row complete, we're going to take the tail from the top of our beanie, and we're going to weave it in and out all the way around the very top of our beanie. So this is going to close it up at the very top. The construction for the assembly on this beanie is a little different for the worsted weight pattern than it is for the extra bulky weight pattern. So again, please reference your pattern notes for the exact way and exact order of closing up your rectangle to create the beanie. The reason that there is a difference between the worsted weight and the bulky weight is simply because of the row that you'll be ending on. So please make sure that you follow the actual pattern throughout the construction and making of this beanie. Once you have the top all closed off, you're just going to pull that tail really tight and you're going to tie it off. From here, it's just a simple matter of weaving in all of our ends, and then your beanie will be complete. So I really hope you guys enjoyed making the Sequoia Slouch beanie with me, and if you liked this tutorial, I hope that you'll give us a thumbs up and follow us on YouTube.